We all knew that there was a drastic change coming for Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. There was going to be a new look introduced, at least we thought, in the Winter Soldier special. Man bun, kind of looks like a samurai, different looking arm and all that stuff, leading up to the Captain America Cold War crossover event between Symbol of Truth and Sentinel of Liberty. An event I don't think anyone's really looking for. Last time we actually saw sales on these, they were dropping very rapidly, but we didn't have to wait for the Winter Soldier special to get the new look. It actually debuts this week, and not only does Bucky Barnes have a new look that I do think is ridiculous, he actually has a new moniker. He's no longer the Winter Soldier after this issue, and I must say the writers, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzig, who I'm not a fan of. I don't think they should be on a comic book as popular and as important as a Steve Rogers Captain America comic. Perhaps they're right. Perhaps Marvel know what they're doing, and Bucky Barnes will never get over as a hero, as Winter Soldier, that they have to divert him from the redemption path of being a hero next to Steve Rogers and kind of the Captain America family within Marvel Comics and make him his own thing, be a big villain. They have a very personal connection, obviously, from their childhood, the war, the revelation of who the Winter Soldier was, where he came from. If you don't know this, Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly have done a lot of retconning to the history of Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, which I don't know if we need to recontextualize where Bucky came from and who turned him into an assassin and all this stuff. It was already, wonderfully done by an actual good comic book writer in Ed Brubaker. I just hate to see jabronis showing up and destroying what might be the best work of Ed Brubaker's life at DC or Marvel. The death of Captain America and the Winter Soldier saga and the redemption of Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier is absolutely fantastic. These guys are never going to be able to touch something like that, but at least they're trying. Bucky Barnes, also known as the Winter Soldier, dons a man bun and takes a totally different name, The New Revolution, in Marvel's Captain America Sentinel of Liberty #6 from writers Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly. In Captain America Sentinel of Liberty #5, Bucky and Steve Rogers' Captain America found themselves at odds with one another when Bucky held up a gun to one of the members of the Outer Circle, a secret organization of villains with ties to Barnes' former life as an assassin. When Steve stood in the way of Bucky and the Outer Circle member, Bucky shot his friend in the arm in order to kill his foe. For those of you who have not been reading this comic book series, and I imagine that's almost all of you, like I said, it's a lot of retconning to where Bucky Barnes came from as the Winter Soldier. Apparently it's tied into this thing called the Century Game and the Outer Circle, this mysterious organization. When they show up, there's only one member left. I believe his name is the Revolution. And as I just mentioned, he ends up shooting Steve Rogers through the shoulder to kill the member of the Outer Circle. I don't know if shooting through somebody to kill somebody else is all that good of an idea. When I was in the military, they certainly didn't train us that way, but I was not a highly skilled assassin like Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, and everything you thought you knew about Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, has been retconned within the last few issues of this comic book series, and apparently is changing. He's no longer going to be the Winter Soldier. How does that happen? Well, let's talk about it. The first thing that I will note in this comic book is the reaction from Steve Rogers to Bucky Barnes murdering this guy through him. Doesn't really feel like Captain America Steve Rogers at all. He doesn't even seem to care that Bucky just murdered somebody right in front of him, one of the greatest heroes in the world, and he's not trying to bring justice to Bucky Barnes. He's still trying to save him, I guess, even though the character had been previously redeemed a few times. You got what you came for. Now let's get out of here together, because make no mistake, even with my bad shoulder, I'm still strong enough to drag you the hell back home. Bucky picks up a pistol, appears to chamber around, and says, Steve, you got to listen to me, because I'm only going to say this once, and explains that the Outer Circle have control over him. He doesn't even know what the Century Game is. He doesn't know how he's been played, and he needs to get to the bottom of this. Obviously, Steve's not just going to leave this guy here. He is going to drag him back home, and we do get an enormous fight. It's over half the comic book issue. Our action scenes, and I must say, I am not a huge fan of Carmen Carnero. In fact, I think Carmen Carnero, as a comic book artist, is not very good. This is probably the best illustrated comic book of Carmen Carnero's life. The action scene is actually quite exhilarating. There's not a lot of meat to it because almost nothing happens in this particular comic book. When it comes to the progression of the actual story, the conflict between the Outer Circle and Bucky Barnes and Steve Rogers. And we certainly get no new information about the Century Game, which apparently is a very big deal and was the driving force behind Bucky Barnes unwittingly becoming the Winter Soldier, becoming an assassin against his own will. So they end up having this enormous fight. Like I said, it actually looks pretty damn good. I tip my cap to Carmen Carnero because I've never seen anything look quite this good from that artist. A lot of the exposition that comes before the big fight scene could have been included in the fight scene itself, because when heroes and villains fight in comic books, they often talk to each other and provide information. And there are certainly opportunities to expand the story and make this thing a little bit more hard-hitting than it actually is. At the end, they're on a cliff. Bucky kicks Steve off the cliff and like catches him with his bionic arm. And that's when we start seeing the big changes. And we do get a somewhat emotional scene here. Bucky's holding Captain America, remembering their time together when Bucky Barnes was the sidekick of Cap, obviously, in World War II. He's crying, and then he hits the star on his arm, releasing it and dropping his best friend, Steve Rogers, the man that never gave up on him, a tremendous, tremendous distance. We know that he's not dead because he's Steve Rogers and he's Captain America. And I do believe in this comic book they tell you, or at least show you specifically, he is not dead, but Bucky Barnes has made his choice. He's turned his back on his friend. He is no longer redeemed. He's no longer a tragic hero. Now he's a complicated villain, which we certainly have plenty of those in the Marvel Comics universe. He's done a heel turn, and that's when we see the new look. The man bun comes up. He puts a cape on. He attaches a new arm, because apparently he's just got bionic arms sitting around everywhere. I think it looks kind of ridiculous with the color scheme on it. And he thinks about all the information that he's gleaned about the Outer Circle, and specifically Revolution, the character that he killed by shooting through Steve Rogers. And he's decided he is going to join the Outer Circle. He takes a seat at the table and he says, "You can call me the New Revolution." Obviously referring to the Century game and leading into Captain America Cold War, which we'll be getting in the not too distant future. To me, this feels like a whole lot of character regression on the part of Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier. He's not the Winter Soldier even anymore. Marvel Comics have so many problems with new characters that they introduce, or even legacy characters, when they try to get them a new mantle, a new hook, a new name to actually stick with the character, that they're actually going to throw one away that worked really well. And generally speaking, I think a lot of people like the Winter Soldier. Did I think Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, would ever sell on par with Captain America, Steve Rogers? No, because one of them is a legacy character, and one of them is the actual hero himself. Are Marvel Comics making a mistake with this heel turn, with Bucky Barnes dropping the Winter Soldier, joining the Outer Circle, and playing the Century game by becoming the New Revolution? I don't know. We shall see. I definitely want to hear from you guys, because I am not a fan of the new look. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It does not fit the character whatsoever, but he's not trying to be himself anymore. He's not trying to be Bucky Barnes. He's trying to be the New Revolution. He's trying to replace the character that he just murdered that was in the Outer Circle. Is that compelling storytelling? I don't know. This certainly isn't the worst thing that Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzig have ever written. It might be the best thing they've ever written, at least that I've read. It's not all that good, but it's not terrible either. And I guess that's a step up for Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly. But it still chaps my ass when you have two jabronis come on board to a character like Captain America working with Winter Soldier and deciding to go back and retcon the last great Captain America run we've actually had at Marvel Comics. We haven't had a Captain America run worth a damn since Ed Brubaker left the character. Obviously, Ed Brubaker's big addition, the thing that he will always be known for, is the Winter Soldier. But there is no Winter Soldier in the Marvel Comics universe anymore. We do know that Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, is joining the Thunderbolts in the movies in the MCU. Does this have something to do with that? Probably, I guess. Gotta have synergy, something like that. I did previously talk about the changes that were upcoming to Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, or the New Revolution. I don't want to get the name wrong. Don't want to screw up the character. Looks like Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly are doing that on their own. And I talked about all the things wrong with the man bun, the cape, just all the changes that they're making to the character that make no sense. A lot more in depth here, talking about all the individual issues with that. I also predict in this video that they are going to give him a new name, a new mantle. Definitely check this out if you don't see it here. There's also a link on the video description.